Good evening and welcome to another episode of Unstoppable Overcomers. I'm your host, Dorothy O'Dell, for this evening. Before we bring up our amazing guest, I would love to give a shout out to our first sponsor of today's show, who is Owen Sharp. Owen is an amazing inspirational author of the children's book, The Great Flood of Bovenland, ages 1 to 3. So if you have a child that loves adventure, that loves to be educated and loves pictures and bright colors, definitely this is the book for you. It is currently on Kindle, and it comes out in paperback November 1st. So where all books are sold, so get your copy today. It would be a great Christmas gift for your children or your loved one. All right, I'm ready, more than ready, to bring up our amazing guest, Karen Birchmore. Welcome to the show, Karen.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. So, we had an incredible time before we got on here, a great first pre-interview. This lady is amazing, but let's tell the world about yourself. So tell us a little bit about you, what you do, who you are, and we'll go from there.
So I'm Karen Birchmore. I am a coach. So I coach people in confidence, change, and careers. And that is a massive pivot from what I used to do, which was to be a global IT program manager in the corporate world. So what I do is coach other people to help them change their lives as well.
Awesome. And so what led you down this journey? What is your overcoming story?
So I sort of picture the scene. So I was standing in my kitchen. I was listening to my boys. It was during COVID. They were doing their online lessons. I was waiting for the kettle to boil. So I take a cup of tea back to go and do my job, even though I knew I was leaving my job because I was going through redundancy. Then my mobile rang, or my cell rang, and it was my boss. And he said, "We've found a potential role for you." And that was my pivotal moment where I realised the old me would have jumped straight in with a yes. Yes, please. I need security. And what actually came out of my mouth was thanks, but no thanks, which was a shock to me as well. And it came from the fact that I'd been told that I was being made redundant about probably 6 months before that conversation. I'd had that initial panic that went, oh my God, I've been here for all these years. I didn't see it coming. I didn't believe that anybody else would ever employ me. I was totally lacking in confidence. And kind of that wobbled me significantly to be told that I was being made redundant. And then I noticed that I was reacting quite differently to everybody else after a little while because they were all going to get jobs doing the same thing. And my brain had said, ooh, opportunity to find out something I actually want to do. And so I'd got myself a coach. And in doing that, I kind of started looking back at the patterns of things that I'd done over my life and found that I had really spent most of my life doing the right thing for other people. I'm a bit of a people pleaser. And doing that, not really doing what I wanted because I didn't even know what I wanted. I didn't have a role model doing anything that I wanted to do. So I'd done the wrong course at university because I'd been told that was a more secure job. I'd fallen into a job straight out of university and I'd accepted it because it was a secure job. It was good money. And then I'd got feedback from them that said the skills that I really enjoy using were not ones that they valued. And so that knocked my confidence. I now, as a coach, I understand a lot about the inter-reaction and interrelation between those. But I realised then when I was looking back that I'd never trusted my own instincts. I'd always done my decisions based on what I thought I should, rather than what I actually wanted. All out of fear of rejection, fear of failure, fear of other people's judgment. And then I realised that actually the skills that I love doing are the types of things like coaching. Found that I could go and get myself a job in that, and I could help other people go through that same journey as me, because I think there's a lot of us that spend a lot of our life doing things because we think we should, and it's just not, it doesn't lead to the most fulfilling form of life, I think.
Absolutely. There's just so much there that you said that I could resonate with. I became a bookkeeper because my dad said, why don't you become a bookkeeper? Right. And so 27 years later, here I am. I'm thinking, oh shit, if I have to do another set of books again, I'm going to scream.
Yeah.
And, and so I get you, right? Because we're in the world of shoulds,
Yes.
you know, and not only are we people pleasing, but we are enablers because,
Yeah.
you know, we enable people to able to have that over us, right? And
Yeah.
I'm just like, when you're thinking, I was like, I get this woman. I totally do.
I gave away all of my
Spent the last-
power, and I had no idea that that was my power to have in
Yeah.
the first place.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you know, a lot of people don't even realize that.
No.
And I remember talking to a girlfriend and she said, well, you allowed it. And I took a moment and I just wanted to I wanted to lash out. And I stopped and I paused and I'm like, whoa, you're right. I did allow it. And so the only one that can change that though is us.
Yeah. And mine was very much the same way, because I used to say that that corporate job took away my confidence. And now I phrase that very differently, as though I gave them my confidence, because I chose to believe what they were saying for me rather than to go, hang on a minute, perhaps I'm not in the right place. Since I've left, now I look back and I'm like, oh my goodness, there were warning flags there from day one. And I just didn't listen to them, because the messages that I was receiving from everybody around me was, well done for getting a good job.
Yeah.
That was it.
Yeah.
And in my people pleasing tendencies, I went, okay, good, I've got a good job.
And that brings up another point. Like in the workplace, you know, if you weren't doing a good job, they should at least tell you that so you know what to improve, right?
So they could never
we think, hey,
I was doing a really good job. I just wasn't enjoying what my job was. And the parts that I wanted to do more of, they didn't value at all. So I was, alongside doing the project management, I was a mentor. And that never went on my form anywhere. That wasn't really a skill that they appreciated. I volunteered to join the European leadership, mentoring leadership team. And they were like, oh, okay, then I suppose we need somebody to do it. And then I got promoted onto the global one, because they were like, oh, okay, we need somebody to do it. And I was sort of officially and unofficially doing that with people forever. And that was what I loved. Right. With hindsight, I asked them right at the beginning of my career if I could move into HR. And they kept saying no. And I gave up asking. I'm like, oh, yeah, something in me knew at the beginning that this wasn't the right one. And then with the years of conditioning that I was good enough at what I did. I think it's funny with hindsight, again, great with hindsight. I was a strange project manager because I loved problems. Because the bit that actually I enjoyed doing was getting all the people to talk to each other. It was getting all of the different ideas of things. It was finding out what the actual solution could be. And I would see myself as the translator between the people who had the money, the people who had the vision, and the people who actually needed to do the work. Right. So it was all about communication. But that wasn't listed as a kind of valuable thing that I did.
Wow. And so would you say that people pleasing came down from childhood, you know, it started there and then escalated throughout your entire life?
Yes, I would. Like I said, I've done a lot of work on myself. So no, I had a bit of an epiphany while I was going through my coaching, which is I needed permission. And when I dug into it, it was all about I needed permission from my mum, actually, when it came down to it. And there was some decision that I'd made when I was really small, that I wasn't as clever as other people, as sporty as other people, as pretty as other people, as popular as other people, but I was a really good girl. And so I had good girl is in my core. And so I could never do anything that would risk me not being seen as a good girl.
Right. Wow. Well, good for you for figuring that out, right? Because now you've used that to help other people.
Yeah, absolutely. Now I'm like, ooh, so the should, one of my favorite expressions now when anybody ever says should to me is, and whose voice is that in? Because this should is always somebody else's opinion. Otherwise you would.
That is 100%. I find myself, I am a power of attorney for a family member, and I feel guilty because I don't spend every weekend, going to check on them. And then, because I feel like it's an obligation, it's a should. And then I give that up. And I'm like, okay, well, when I can and I want to, that I will do it. So it's not out of obligation or a should or, yeah, it's, I have somebody says we should all over ourselves.
That's one. I wrote a blog about that. That was shoulding all over ourselves. Yeah.
And with your accent, it sounds a lot different, but I love it.
And we do.
It. I love it. I love that this fact. Well, that's the thing, right? And yeah. And anybody who takes themselves so seriously, like it's I did for years, for decades. That was what I was, and I was making myself miserable, and people around me like, oh, just calm down. I'm only joking. Well, we all know that there's a little bit of truth in people's jest, right? Yeah. So there's also that too.
There is definitely.
And so you've had your business for how long now?
So kind of a little bit of crossover with still being in my corporate role, because I was actually I was going through redundancy for a year. So I took my part-time status and used that while the kids were at home doing homeschooling and stuff. So it wasn't being mum's taxi everywhere. So I formally retrained as a coach. So I had all of the experience at work, but I wanted to formally retrain. So I started officially my business, I think, just over 2 years ago. But I'd been kind of working on getting the qualifications and stuff for about a year before that. And then about 5 years before that, actually just doing it in my corporate role without really acknowledging it.
Right. And that is something, because I've heard that in so many workplaces where, if HR or management would take a look at their employees and see if they're actually well matched up to what they're actually doing, right? Because if you just rearranged people in certain departments, you would have everything that you need. Everybody would be happy. Everybody would be at peak performance, and everybody would be like ecstatic to be there instead of dragging their ass into work.
I think with a lot of it, it kind of does start with us still. We need to know. So something I work a lot with my clients about is the difference between a strength and a skill. So I have various skills, which are things that I can do. Some of them I can do really well. They're only a strength if I enjoy doing them. So I can do Excel. Oh my goodness. I was a project manager. I had to be able to do Excel. I hate Excel. I still have to use it, but very minimally in my job. And that kind of thing of understanding, well, just because you can do something doesn't mean that you want to do something.
Amen. And it's funny you brought up Excel. Like, I swear this is like a download from God this morning, us talking, because I'm doing a course in Excel for my job, and I'm 3/4 of the way there, and it's taken me a year to do this. And I'm listening to this guy, and I'm like, this is the boringest shit ever. I want to put a, like, I don't know. This is not what I want to do. And so I totally get you. And being in finance, you needed spreadsheets. And I'm like,
I needed spreadsheets to manage my project costs, but no. Yes. I got moved into a job specifically because I could do that. And that was my worst job. And I said, I don't want this job. Please don't move me into this job. And they said, tough, you can do it. And he wants you to do that. And I got put in a job and I loathed it. Fortunately, it was with 2 other people who were 2 of the best people I worked with ever. So as a team, it was a really lovely team to be working in. But the job I absolutely hated. And then I would get feedback from people going things like, oh, why don't you just leave? There was a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy there, because then I was like, oh my goodness, I am so rubbish. I haven't even got the courage to leave. Let me knock myself down a little bit further.
Yeah, there you go. The confidence,
Mhm.
the confidence. And a lot of people lack confidence. And
Yeah.
I could tell when I'm in that zone of genius where everything's flowing, my confidence is high, and then something will happen.
Mhm.
And the confidence is gone. And then you're not as, doing the things that you were doing before. Um, would you say that, what is the biggest thing that you help your clients with right now?
Confidence, definitely. So I did a bit of a survey of them after I'd been working for about a year, and the consistent word that came back from all of them was confidence. And it's about understanding yourself, what you enjoy doing, learning. So I grew up very much with the message you shouldn't boast. And so ever thinking positively about yourself was boasting. So I had to learn how to appreciate the things that I could do. A really great lesson that I learned was the difference between confidence and arrogance. And it was only when I realized that those two words meant the same thing to me. And I was like, yeah, confident people, they're all arrogant. And actually, what I now know is arrogance is I'm great and I'm better than all of you. And confidence is I'm great and so are all of you.
I love that. I love that. And I see the distinction now that you said that.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah.
Because arrogant people do make you feel inferior. That's their aim. And I never, ever, ever, ever wanted to be perceived like that. So I'd, again, knocked my own confidence by not allowing myself to feel like I was any good at anything.
Right. Right. And some arrogant people, I call them cocky. So, some, not all, but you're cocky, and then there are the arrogant ones where they're so full of themselves, in my opinion, that, but they're exuding confidence, which if you are triggered by that, that means that you're obviously lacking it somewhere.
Yeah.
And, same with you growing up and things like that. Kids were cruel, and confidence was definitely not something that I had growing up. So I see that now, where those kids where I thought were cocky were actually just confident because they, were not in the same headspace I was. So.
Yes. But a lot of confident people who come across as confident, as in the version of arrogance, are actually usually trying to project that they are to convince you and themselves that they are. And that they do that by putting other people down to try and make themselves feel better.
Yes. True.
So that's not a pure confidence either. That's a comparison thing.
Right. And if you got to knock somebody's crown off to make yourself look good, then what is that really saying about you?
Yeah, it means that, well, in my world, and that's not the nicest type of person. I don't wish to be one of those.
Exactly. No, totally get it. And because in my world, we straighten each other's crown. We don't kick each other down. When you're down, we help you. Things like that.
I think since my escape from the corporate world, that's very much become obvious to me as well, because there it was compete against each other. We were ranked, literally ranked, and told that this number of people was better than you and this number of people was worse than you, literally ranked. And then I came out and I found that actually when you all work and you all rise together, it's a much nicer world to be in, and it is easier and it is totally possible.
Right. Yep. Yes. You're just giving me such insights to a lot of different things that, like, if I feel like my head's spinning, it's because it is. There's just a lot going on there. Yeah, it's all good stuff. All good stuff. But having what you did in childhood and stuff like that, and in the corporate world, has led you to where you're at today. So definitely a good stepping stone, right? And so
absolutely. And I think one of the things that I learned as well was that you can never look back and regret, because you can't change the past. So you can look back, you can learn, and you can move forward, but you can't regret. So I don't look back and regret working for the wrong company for that long, because I learned a lot from them, and I wouldn't be able to do the job that I do now if I hadn't been through that experience. So
Absolutely. Absolutely. Stepping stones of greatness from one thing to the next, and God elevating us to the next level, right? And
Mm.
it's funny, we can look back after and think, oh, well, that's why I went through it. You're just like yourself. There's never been a mistake. It's always a lesson. What was, no matter what we've gone through in life. My theory is it was all a lesson. So that we could have empathy for others, right? And so that, why am I going through this? So that I can relate to you, right?
Yeah, and I think as Tony Robbins says, life happens for you, not to you. Mm-hmm. And the first time I heard that as a phrase, it was like, really? Because I really felt like it happened to me. And now, having done all this work on myself, I totally appreciate that it's my choice how I react to things and how I learn from things. I don't have any control over the things that happen to me.
And it's funny that you said that, because on a lot of different personal development that I've done over the years, the one thing is, if you take full responsibility of your life, 100% responsible for everything that has happened, everything, it will actually get you further along instead of the blame game. And like you said, like, we're all by taking responsibility of it, we're the only ones that can change it. Your husband can't change you.
No.
He can't bring happiness into, you have to be happy first before your husband can.
And you have to know what happiness means for you. And a lot of people equate happiness with success, and then they don't understand what their own version of success would be. So I was effectively brought up, the world that I came up in, and then the corporate world that I grew up in. Success was status and money and being able to do stuff. And I've realized that success for me is flexibility. It's being able to pick and choose the things that I want to do for myself and for other people. And it's not about money. Not that I'm saying that money is not important. I mean, let's just go with that one.
Right.
Money makes life easier. Absolutely. But I'm driven by the need to have lots of money and show that amount of money to people. That's
right. What and that's true. There are some going to that. That raises a good. I'm not going to say argument, but a good topic here, because a lot of people allow money to rule them, right? That rule their lives, rule everything. Well, let's face it. In order to survive in today's world, there is a currency that you need. You need the money, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you're, some people just want to make enough to be comfortable. Some people want to make enough to have an obscene amount in their bank accounts. And some people want to have an obscene amount so that not only can they have an obscene amount in their bank accounts, they can also help an obscene amount of people.
Yeah.
And so it's not right or wrong in which category you fall into. Yep. It's your person. 100%. 100%. Like, if I look back at my heritage and, even before my parents, and poverty was a thing for them. Yeah. And I'm like, and it ends with me, because this is not how I want my life to be. This is not okay. This is not something I want to live into. And so, when I figured that out, I was just like, okay, well, thank you for the past. This is now my future and my present. And I'll be the first millionaire in my family, and I will be the first one to go out and help save the world.
Yeah, change people's lives, because different, like you were saying, people have different purposes for having money. Mm-hmm. And I think it's understanding what your key driver. Like, if you have lots of money, what are you going to do with that money? Because if the only thing that you're going to do with that money is stick it in the bank, then there's not many people who get to their end of their lives and wish they had a bigger bank account, but they didn't have as many friends or didn't have as many experiences and all of that. I think it's knowing what you mean by success and what you are actually looking for.
100%. So like I said, I've got a million thoughts running through my head right now. And you're right. Like, what would you want it for? And right. and you're totally right. At the end of your life, like my dad never said, "Oh, I wish I had $1 million in my bank account." It was like, "I love you, and I'll see you on the other side." Basically,
Yeah.
It wasn't, and that's as my sons or my stepson's getting older, and as I get older, I'm like, I want the memories. I don't want things.
Yes.
My house is not a clutter. Like you can come into my house. Well, don't look into my office because it's cluttered with paperwork. But anywhere else in my house is not cluttered with things. It's like, and if I buy it, that must mean that it has some kind of value to me. I just don't buy stuff just for the sake of it.
No.
You know, and I know a lot of people like who wants it. Right. And because that's just not what this is full of pictures.
Images. And I don't think I'm really a things person. I am becoming much more aware of appreciation of things that I find beautiful.
Absolutely.
So I didn't used to, I don't think, appreciate. I don't think I spent any time knowing what I appreciated. I was too busy moving from the next thing that I should be doing to the next thing that I should be doing.
I can relate with that too, because we're on the, oh, okay, so we have arrived at this, what's next? Oh, good. Okay. Well, we've reached 2,000 people on LinkedIn. What's next? Oh, 10,000 views. Okay. 200 episodes. Okay. So what's next? Right. And then I really had to check myself this year. I'm like, what am I really doing this for?
Yeah. How does it add value in your life or in what's important to you?
Mm-hmm.
If not, you've got to use your energy for something else.
Right. Like spending time with my family.
Yeah. Time's the only finite resource, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, and that's why the entire summer, we did things differently here. We recorded shows, and instead of me being tied to a desk every Monday night, oh, that's great. I can talk to people around the world like you, and have an amazing time. And now with technology, we don't even have to be in the same place.
Nope. No.
So
I think that was one thing I have to say that I did get from my corporate career was the fact that I could talk to people in any time zone. That has always been a joy to me, is to be able to talk to people from different areas of the world, different perspectives, different backgrounds, and get to learn about like how narrow some of our perspectives can be just from the situation that we live in.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%.
And it keeps us small.
And that,
because we're not looking for the other perspectives.
That is what, yes. And that's one of the great things that happened with COVID. It got us to be, basically we were all in each other's backyard because we couldn't go out and play.
Yep.
So we found Zoom, or we found StreamYard, or we found something.
Yeah.
And the world just got a lot smaller, because now I have literally friends pretty much in every state and almost in every country. I'm working on the countries now. I'm pretty much every state. And my stepson goes, "Hey, do you have anybody that lives over here? I need this picked up." I just like,
you're the person to know.
Yeah. I'm like, well, I do, but and then there's levels of friendship in my world, like acquaintances or a true friend that I could call them up and say, "Hey, could you go pick this up? I'll send you the money. Could you pick this up?" And then mail it to me. And there's that level of friendship. And then there's the level of friendship where you just show up at the door. You drive 6 hours and you show up at the door, and there you are. There's
I think that's something that I talk to my kids about what the definition of friendship is, and how you can have friends for different purposes, which sounds very brutal, but it doesn't. It isn't. You have friends that you'll call on for this thing, friends that you'll socialize with, but other friends that don't want to socialize, but they're still your friends, but you want to see them in a different situation. Friends that are just there for a period of your life, and friends that I went to school with that I can pick up the phone and talk to anytime. It's different levels of friendship.
Yeah. And totally, and it's not like you're using them, because people, I think people have come in and out of my life for different reasons and seasons, right? Whether they needed me or I needed them.
Yeah.
And I used to be really upset with that. I used to, because I had an expectation, right, on what that relationship should have been like.
Yeah.
And I realized the last couple of years, if I give up all expectations to everything, not be open to anything and attached to nothing, like the great Dr. Wayne Dyer says, life goes a lot smoother.
Yes. Yeah. Well, the definition of disappointment is expectations not being met, isn't it? So if you don't have any expectations, you shouldn't be disappointed.
That's true. That is true. So then what is that with goals then? Because if you set a goal, is that an expectation?
So goals, I think, is different. So I think a goal is something that you can aim for. And I think we should all have goals. I think being flexible on how you want to achieve that goal is key. Revising whether that goal is still something that you want, because you can set a goal and then find something else out about yourself or about life and go, actually, that was a perfectly good goal then, but it's not valid for me anymore. So I think goals are worth having. I know from NLP that if you can visualize those goals, then your brain does its part at helping you find the solutions on how to get there, which is great. But I don't think that you should ever kick yourself for failing to achieve a goal. If you decided that wasn't the right one anymore, so you change direction. If you learn something that means that that's not the right one anymore, that's fine. I think that's the bit about goal setting that worries me as a bit extreme. But I think goal setting is a useful tool, but that you shouldn't use it to punish yourself.
I love that. Yes, because I was one of those ones that would punish myself because I didn't get to my goal. You know, so that must mean you're not working hard enough, even though I was up 18 hours a day.
Yeah.
No, you weren't getting any sleep and not allowing everything to come in, right? Yeah. And of course, everything has been a learning lesson, right? Because I could definitely see that over the years. Back when I was in my early 20s, well, mid 20s, I had this dream board, and I had written goals down on what I wanted on this dream board, and every single one of them had come true. And then I've gone through periods where nothing came through, and that I'm like, okay, I'll set the goal. Here's how I'm going to achieve it. And if I achieve it, great. And if I don't, that's fine too. But then I am also looking to see what did come through, because there's always going to be something that comes through.
Yeah.
And
if you didn't achieve it, what did you do instead? Because almost certainly there will be a reason, which is why reflection is really powerful. It's like actually looking back and going, what did I think I wanted? I haven't got it. Do I still want it? Okay, what do I need to do next? I don't want it anymore because this and this happened and is more important now. But it's funny when I look back, because I did a Be Your Own Coach book when I was in my early 20s and set all of these goals, did a letter to the universe and all of that, completely forgot about it, found it about 10 years later when we moved house, found my list of what I'd done, and I had achieved everything on that list. So it wasn't intentional, but it was part of it. I'd just planted the idea in my head that I wanted to do it. Then you've got a part of your brain called the reticular activating system that, if it agrees with you, will find ways of making it happen. So yeah, goal setting is powerful, but I think if you're a people pleaser, if you're a person that likes to achieve things, then I think you have to be careful not to weaponize it against yourself. Mm-hmm. So I have, I think most people, not all, most people have some kind of inner voice. Mine is called my inner bitch, and when she gets going, she's really quite mean. And it's being able to recognize her and argue back with her, rather than going, oh yeah, there's another goal you didn't achieve. See, you're rubbish again.
I love that you said that, because I didn't realize on one of my interviews I had said, flip the bitch switch, and somebody caught it. And it's in one of the trailers for one of our clients. And I was just like, oh God, I hope she likes that. But it's true. Like, I love that inner bitch. I think we all have an inner bitch, even if you're a guy. Yeah. I swear to God.
Yeah.
Because
we would never dream of saying to anybody else. Right. They're so mean.
Right. Exactly. And we would never think of talking to anybody else that way except for ourselves, right? And so it's yeah. What I was referring to, the bitch switch though, is like we don't wake up being miserable. There has to be a reason. Like if you're being a bitch or flipping the bitch switch, it's because somebody or something has triggered you to have that moment.
Yeah.
So, for people of the male gender who think that, women are just bitches, and I'm not saying that there's a whole lot of them, but anybody who actually is listening to this, there's a reason why she flips it, guys. It's not because she just woke up that way. Something has triggered her to be that way. So whether that be him, whether that be the kids, whether that be whomever. So I think having the grace in those moments to be able to go, wait a minute, let's give each other grace. What happened? Let's, like you said, go back to the clarity. What happened in that moment? Bring truth to the dark in that moment, and then move on to get your confidence.
Yeah, and one of the things that is really important is, I think, really understanding that we never know what's going on for somebody else. We never know. So if something that we do inadvertently triggers somebody else, it's about them, it's not about us. So we don't have to take well, to a certain extent, you don't have to take responsibility for it. If you did something that wasn't right, then yes, you have to take responsibility for it. But, quite often it's not us. And so we then have to take responsibility for noticing our own triggers. So when my inner bitch is on full flow, I'll be like, oh, what did I do? What did I hear? What did I say? What happened that made her go? And then I get to argue back with her with one of the really great tools that you learn in coaching is if you can find, if that's your belief, find evidence for it, and then pick the completely opposite belief, find evidence for that as well, because you'll find you can, because it's a belief, it's not a fact.
I love that. Absolutely love that. And this is all what you help your clients find and do.
Yeah, it's just, and self-awareness, I think it's really, really important. So even reflecting back to somebody, the language that they use. So some people are very hard on themselves and will tell you lots of awful things about themselves. Well, then you're going to believe those because you've got somebody telling you that all the time. Somebody who uses a lot of shoulds, reflect back to them a lot of shoulds, because coming from a place of knowing that my shoulds all came from trying to please other people, who are you trying to please and what do you actually think in that situation? And sometimes, I know I was one of those people, I couldn't tell you what I actually thought because I'd never spent any time thinking about what I actually thought. It was about what other people thought.
Wow, that's powerful too. Right. What are other people believing? Right. Love that. Love that. So yes, if all of this resonates with you and you're listening to this show and you're like, okay, I really need to get in touch with Karen, definitely go to her website, look her up there, get in touch with her, and just really get your clarity and step into your confidence. Because I love what you said earlier, where if you don't know what you want, how are you going to even obtain that, right? And that's part of the clarity piece.
Definitely. I think really getting clear on our understanding of ourselves is important. And that is literally why my business is called Clarity and Confidence, is because I went from not having clarity and not having confidence to knowing exactly what I want, exactly who I am, and that inadvertently boosting my confidence because now I know who I am and it's not questionable by other people. So it's just more innate.
Right. So if you're having a bad day, you are the boss, so you can only get mad at yourself.
Yes, I can sit down, I can journal on the messages I am receiving from my inner bitch. And then I can look for the opposite and see if whether maybe that might be true. And there's usually a middle ground that's actually the truth. It's just thinking about it differently and knowing that you do it.
Right. And being self-aware of all that, because I mean, a lot of people aren't even self-aware that that is what they're going on. It wasn't until I decided that, wait a minute, there's got to be the flip side to what's going on in life, that I really realized, well, you know, I thought these things, and that's it, you know, because I thought them, then it must be true, like you
Yep.
said, and you know, going with that, and really
The
tapping
perspective is a
into
really
all
perspective
of
and
that. So
interpretation, because we're interpreting the world through our own sets of biases. So, as a kind of aside, but a fascinating conversation I heard once, where this guy was saying, so I know through the work that I do, the physiological feeling in your body of nerves and the physiological feeling in your body of excitement are exactly the same thing. Our our brain's interpretation of those feelings is whether we feel nervous or whether we feel excited. That's it. And it was a really interesting conversation that I was listening to, where this guy said it had never occurred to him as a speaker to be nervous about going on stage. He was just always excited about going on stage. And then he started talking to other people and they felt nervous. And then he started talking to them about how does nervous feel, and found out that it was the same as excitement. And he was like, oh, so it's literally my choice to not feel nervous.
wow.
I thought, so I know biologically that to be true, but listening to this guy explaining it, I was like, oh, that is so true. So now if I'm feeling nervous about something, I get to take a step back and go, what if I chose to see this as excitement instead? It's a different perspective, far more empowering perspective, and you get to go and do anything anyway.
Mm-hmm. I love that. Just changing your perspective. You get to choose.
You do.
I love that.
You do. You get to choose everything.
That.
And I think a lot of us grow up with this, with the messages being so loud and society being so loud that we believe there's only one interpretation of the situation. And yet we know that if you have a conversation with somebody, two of you will walk away and remember different things from exactly the same conversation, because they'll go through our own filters. So we know that to be true, and yet we still think that our interpretation is the correct one.
Wow. Powerful. Wow, this has been a powerful episode. Thank you so much, Karen.
You're so welcome.
Your wisdom. Like, this has been extremely helpful. Brought up a lot of good things, and brought up a lot of like, oh yeah, still need to work on that. So
yeah, get a pen and paper. Journaling is so important. Go back and write down what were the things that came up.
Yes.
And dig into why.
Absolutely. Well, this is now the time where we usually have the fundamentals, and Kimberly would come on. However, Kimberly is not able to make it today, but we are still going to share the fundamental section with Karen here, have some fun with this. So Karen, what would you say your 3 fundamentals would be?
So for me, I have a few. And interestingly, one of the things that I do with my clients is understanding about values. We dig a lot into values and whether they're actually your values or whether they're somebody else's values that you've inherited. But my true values that I am really, really passionate about, kindness. Everybody should be kind, because you do not know what is going on in other people's lives. You've got no right to judge. And kindness is free. And if we can make somebody else feel better because we've been kind to them, why would we not choose that option?
Yeah.
So kindness is one of them. Flexibility is one of them. So there are so many different ways of doing things that I think being rigid about something is to limit yourself. And that can go in anything. It can go in mindset, but it can also go in how you working styles. So for me, flexibility was really important when I set up my business. I want to have a flexible working life so that I can work around my kids, because that's the most important thing. So flexibility. And the last one is equity. And equity is a little bit, when I said equity to my husband, he went, what, money? I was like, not that kind of equity. Equity is about, it's not the same as equality, but a lot of people talk about equality. Equity is more about how we are all, sadly, we're not all equal in this world, but we need to have equitable opportunities available to us so that we can give everybody the chance to do what they love in the way that works best for them. So I've worked a lot with people with disabilities, people with neurodiversities, that kind of stuff. And I think it's really important that we ask people, don't make assumptions, but ask what they need so that everybody has the opportunity to do what they love, and feel valuable and valued in their life.
I love that. I've never heard of that before. So thank you. That is something new.
So there's a great analogy that describes it, which is you've got like a fence, and over the other side is like a soccer game or a baseball game or something that you want to watch. And you've got a small child, a teenager, and an adult behind the fence. So equality would be to give them all a box to stand on. And then the adult would still be able to see, the teenager would now probably be able to see, but the small child would still not be able to see. Equity would be giving 3 boxes to the small child, 2 boxes to the teenager, and 1 box to the adult so that everybody can see over the fence.
Ooh, that is rich. Mm-hmm. That is rich. Thank you so much for that. That is, I've never had it brought in that, especially to the show anyway. So thank you for that.
I just think it's powerful. We just need to all be able to do. Nobody should have advantages over other people just because of situations. We should be fair to everybody.
I love that. And that's why you guys should go right now to www.clarity-and-confidence.com and book a time with Karen today, because that right there, I mean, that is huge. And thank you so much, Karen, for sharing your wisdom today. Do you have any last words for our guests?
I think value yourself, learn to listen to yourself, and learn to trust your instincts. And if you don't know how to do that, get somebody to help you.
Absolutely. Well, that is powerful. And thank you so much. And absolutely. I just want to give one last shout out to our sponsor, Owen Sharp of the Great Flood of Wovenland. Definitely go get your copy today, whether that be on a Kindle or the paperback, like I said, which came out November 1st. Get your copy today for your amazing children who will have adventure and education that you don't want them to miss. So, and that's for ages 1 to 7. So get your copy today. And don't forget to be unstoppable in all that you do. Join us next week, same time, same channel. Bye for now.